Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night breakdown where Daniel Ratledge and Dave Forrester will try and find some drama in a week that lacked a lot of it.
It makes me pine for the thought of the All-Star game.
Well, it might be closer than some of the games we've seen this weekend.
Yeah.
Let's touch briefly on the European game on Wednesday. London Lions 100, Turk Telekom 77. I was doing a different game, and when I came out of that game, they were up 15, and by the time I got to somewhere where I could watch it, it finished. But Lions got on top, stayed on top, and pretty comfortable, so through to the quarterfinals.
I think you would say that they peaked at the right time
Mm,
and they had the best version of themselves
mm,
and playing. The only guy who wasn't playing was Solwade.
mm,
I'm not even sure he breaks into that rotation
mm,
when they've got Decker and Nwaba
mm.
both healthy. Added to Philip, Nelson, um, Jordan Taylor, and they were able to bring Conor Morgan off the bench as well. They just played like that was a game they'd been thinking about for 3 months.
Mm.
It's just the definition of mental focus in how important mental focus is in sport. You compare that game to the trophy final. It's just it's an entirely different level of connection to the game, which sounds awfully difficult to quantify, but it is palpable. And I think Decker came in and he had like 9 points in about 3 minutes, and flew up and down the court. And um, they just they made Turk Telecom look a very average team.
Mm.
They were all over the glass. They had this athleticism advantage. Nwaba gives them another option because he's kind of a one-on-one scorer who you can throw the ball to at the elbow and the high post and in all different places to get mismatches. So, and he can score because that's what he's been. He's been in the NBA. You've got to be able to score to be in the NBA. He's played 230 games. And I just thought it was super impressive. I mean, it was miles by miles the best that they've played. Of course, it's by miles the strongest group that they've had all season. Um, but there was no way that they were letting the EuroCup season end
No.
um, on that game. I thought it was super, super impressive.
Mm. Nawaba 19, Olashani 18 points, 8 rebounds, Matt Morgan 16, Tyrone Wallace 25, James Palmer Jr. 16, and Stephen Enoch 12 for the Turks. So London through now, they play UBT Cluj-Napoca of Romania next Wednesday. And the winner of that will play the winner of Paris against Badalona in the semi-final.
Mm.
So, Thursday night, Sheffield Sharks 71, Surrey Scorchers 62. No Justin Robinson for Surrey. It was the team's 500th league game as a coach. Eitel Rock scoring early on was 9-9 after 6 minutes, but the main run of the game really came just after that. Surrey didn't score for 6.5 minutes. Sheffield went 15 points without reply to lead 24-9.
I just thought Sheffield played more defense than Surrey. I thought Sheffield were more, when we're getting to that point of the season where home teams generally are putting, the home away differential disparity becomes a little bit bigger because everybody's trying to put on a show in front of their own fans, and it's a long season. There's lots of traveling. You're playing teams that you've played multiple times, and Justin Robinson looked a hell of a good player in this game.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? Yeah.
No, because they, sorry, their spacing was awry without him. And I know they've played plenty of minutes this season without him when he's come off the bench and that type of thing. But there's a difference because if he's eating up 20 to 22 to 24 minutes, and you don't only have to find another 16 or 18, and that's basically what Andrew Lawrence has been playing. Gooden's been playing a little bit, but not at the kind of the rule whereby you can just throw them in and expect them to do a quad green, So they struggled to create shots. Then the shots that they created, they struggled to knock down, which didn't help. But I thought Sheffield were alive defensively. They got just enough offense. Certainly, their Sheffield's bench came in and played very well, and it got to the point whereby you just felt that every kind of hustle play Sheffield were making it. It's always you always watch the closeouts. It's how teams close out, how connected you are to the game. And I just thought Sheffield closed Surrey out better than Surrey closed Sheffield out. Closeouts, I mean, Chase, when the ball swung to a 3-point shooter, how committed are you? How committed are you to getting there, taking the shot away, and also keeping them in front of you? Because it's a difficult thing, and you've got to be really alert and really quick. And if you're half a second short, it's an easy shot. You know, and if you're half a second on it, you can stuff up an offense. And that's often where the game is. And I thought Sheffield did a pretty good job of getting out to Surrey, and I don't think Surrey moved the ball as well as they have without Robinson. And you know, they were playing lots of different lanes by the end. Surrey trying to find something that worked.
They did get a 13-0 run, sorry, to get it to 57-52 in the fourth quarter, but Little Rock with 6 in a row to seal the game. Even though they did get it to 5, it never really felt like they were going to.
Well, the only, you know, the question was, could, you know, as you said, Surrey's team has been able to score the ball quite well, but they really struggled to score in this game. They missed chippies, they missed open threes, they struggled at times to get good looks. They got very little in transition. I think the foul shooting wasn't great. You know, and if your 13-0 run is over kind of 2.5 minutes, and you think, oh right, okay, but if your 13-0 runs over like 5.5 minutes, you know, eventually the other team's going to score.
Yeah.
I think it was more of a 5.5 minute job than a 12-minute job, you know, which but it was kind, you know, you need to say, you need that moment of, you need the moment where somebody makes a play when you come overturning a big lead. You need the moment where somebody makes a play and kind of the seesaw tilts. You know, there's, you know, because you're coming back, and if you make that play, maybe the one that takes you over the edge, or maybe one that gets you within a point, or a big 3 or a 4-point play, or a block, and the seesaw tilts in the minds of the players, and so suddenly you're just on the upside of it.
Yeah.
And then suddenly the opposition can disappear very quickly.
And they had the ball a couple of times, if I remember rightly, where they could have made that play and they didn't.
That's right. And I got close to it. And yeah, so there you go. That's this week's homily. The seesaw didn't tilt.
Indeed. Idle Rock with 16, Green 14.7 rebounds, Nixon 5 of 7 for 12 points.
Nixon was good. Nixon gave their second unit a real boost. And you know, Sheffield have had kind of 6 weeks of figuring out their 10 players, and they seem to have set on a course now, which at least should give them some consistency of approach in relation to the players. I mean, in relation to knowing what they're meant to be doing and who's going to be shooting the ball and when. So Nixon came in and I thought made shots. I mean, but the game for me was summarized on that shot on the end of the first quarter, where you know Andrew Lawrence is guarding Prentice Nixon. There's only 2 seconds on the clock.
Yeah.
He's 30 feet away, and he just stands there and lets him shoot it. You know, it just seemed to me that, you know, Surrey's, you know, focus, whether it's because they were coming off a win or whatever, I just thought their focus was kind of 3 steps below where it had been previously.
Jameson with 11 points and 15 rebounds, the only player in double figures. They were 8 of 31 from 3. Also Thursday night, Bristol flies 76, Siauliai of Lithuania 84 in the European North Basketball League. I don't know if you saw.
Yeah, I watched this. I actually kind of watched more of this in the Sheffield game, to be honest.
Did you?
Yeah.
So I didn't see it, but I have watched the last minute back. But obviously they were 17 down in the second quarter, and a 10-0 run got them back in it. But they were kind of chasing and then got in front in the fourth quarter, and Thorpe hit some threes, and they were back behind Bristol.
Yeah, their energy wasn't great to start with, to be honest. It was almost like the big boys and the little boys in the play yard, you know. And it was that's both mental and physical thing, because when you look at Bristol are probably just about the outside of London, probably maybe them and Caledonia are actually the biggest teams in the league, in the British Basketball League, insofar as at each position. You know, Olsen, Thomas Edwards, Jacob, Bradley's now 6'10". Green's probably the biggest big guy outside of London in the league, pure big. So they're generally bigger at each position in the BBL. In this game, they were dwarfed at every position. You know, obviously we know there's a production line of 6'8" guys in Lithuania with long arms. You know, and sure they had a couple of them, and then Brad Green 6'10", and there's a guy who's 7 foot with long arms, you know, as well. So you know they kind of let themselves to be dictated to early, and then they did what they've often done at Wise, and kind of got stuck in and made a few shots, made a few hustle plays, ran up and down. But it was always that it was being a first leg. The jeopardy wasn't quite there for the Lithuanians, so they weren't going to crack. They weren't going to panic. They were up too early, and they've been in this. It's not the first rodeo or whatever they have in Lithuania. I don't know, hoggy things. I don't know. They didn't panic, and
No.
Bristol gave it away in the last minute. They didn't do
Yeah,
it.
so I've got I did watch the last minute back, so we can go
Right.
through that. Johnson with the three with 58 seconds to go to make it 75-78. And it's at that point you think, right, 3 plays left, maybe 4. We stick at 3. You don't
Let's get
worry
out the
about,
gym. Yeah,
yeah,
let's get out the gym.
37 seconds to go. Ollison with a goaltend as Gladiators went to the basket. A rather hopeful coach challenge that one, I
Yeah,
thought.
I'm beyond hopeful. Yeah.
Surprised it took them as long to watch it back, but there you go. 75-80.
I'm sure there was a few Bristol fans kind of breathing on the screen to try and fog it up a bit.
Ollison goes quickly to the basket. 30 seconds left. He's fouled, makes 1 for 2. Green was close to an offensive rebound, but it went out of bounds for a Cholet ball. Good ball movement, I thought, from Cholet on that last play, and Shaquille Keith.
From
A
memory,
little unfortunate not to get an and one. I have to say he scored underneath 76-82.
though, they trapped towards the top of the key, towards the top
Yeah,
of the halfway line.
yeah.
And the trapping is what begets the ball movement. This is a smart team. So the minute that they get 2 people on the ball, the ball's pinging out of there, and you got to find your way.
Mm.
Shaquille Keith is interesting because I remember looking at him. He played in Spain in Spain, left gold, probably the last couple of years that I was with the Eagles. And I remember looking at him and considering recruiting him, but primarily on his numbers and the other numbers that we couldn't afford. It didn't work. But I had the numbers, and I looked at him and thinking, this guy's a centre, and in fact he's anything but. So I didn't watch another video to look at him properly. But no, I thought Ollison went very quick, and they went to win. They were playing as if they were winning. They were playing to win the game. They were down. They were down 5.
My
And
thing with the going quick thing, because
two
I
for
was
one,
wondering
maybe.
that
Yeah,
as
2
well
for
as
1.
2 for 1, because it's 30 seconds, so you
Yeah.
should get the ball back.
Yeah, I get that. I'm not going to, but it just seemed to. But then the next possession, they tried to speed them up,
Mm.
and I'm like, and I say with the trap, they hadn't trapped all game. Not that I can remember anyway. And by trapping them, yeah, say the ball gets to move, and they get. I think they got. Did they get a layup or a dunk out of
Yeah,
it?
he was
Yeah,
underneath the basket on
underneath
his
the
own.
basket.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they get an easy one. Now these points are just as important as the points in the first minute in the next game.
Yeah.
So you don't need to be doing that. You need to be playing solid and getting out there with the last possession, seeing if you can score.
Mm.
So they didn't do that, and I think they went down and attacked quite quickly.
Timeout, advance the ball. Bradley drives the baseline and steps out of bounds. So that was the worst possible outcome with 5.8 seconds to go,
Yeah.
which,
So all you're saying is that we get the last shot.
yeah,
But we didn't.
yeah. And then you didn't, yeah. Timeout, advance the ball the other way. There was a foul pretty quickly, but they had 2 fouls to give at that stage. So, and then 2.1 seconds to go, they were worried about the 3 and left Danushevich wide open underneath for a dunk.
Again, they trapped. They got caught 2 on the ball, and the big guy rode and gave up a dunk. And yeah, it was just a little bit of mind scramble. It just seemed to me that the minds were a bit scrambled by the whole situation. If that guy if he makes a tough 3 on the buzzer, you tip your hat and you walk out. But you don't get. He gave up 2 dunks in the last 30 seconds, effectively.
In
They
the
didn't give
last
that
8
many.
seconds,
Last
effectively.
8 seconds.
Yeah.
He didn't give up, and didn't do that most of the games. So now you're in a 2-run game where you've got to basically win the game in Lithuania twice. You got to win the game, and then you got to win it again. You got to win it by a bit more.
Yeah.
And so the difference between 5 and 8 is the difference between 1 run and 2 runs.
Yeah.
Down 5 with a minute to go, and you got every chance. You're down 8 with a minute to go, the game's gone. So that could be pointless. I think they're going to struggle in Lithuania. I mean, I remember Newcastle playing Siauliai. They're better now than they were. They've got good depth. They've got better Americans, and I think they're going to be ready to. I think they're going to expect to go up early against Bristol. So the question will be, can Bristol get a foothold in the game? And they won't be short of confidence, Bristol.
No, they won't. No, they won't. Green, 9 of 14, 20 points and 10 rebounds. Johnson, 16. Bradley, 15. Keith with 16 points. Thorpe, 15 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists. And Van der Plas, even 11 points.
Including one, you probably didn't see it, but there was one alley-oop whereby even the Surrey players were kind of going, like that. It was Van der Plat, who I think it was maybe Keith, I thought, threw it off one hand from the corner, and it was a challenge alley-oop, and he got it on the run, which I went, oh, wow. So that if you can find that out, I'm sure Ian, you'll be able to put that on a highlights package somewhere. That was kind of a breathtaking play, I think.
Well, let's go to Friday. Newcastle Eagles 109, Manchester Giants 77. No Evan Walsh for Manchester. I feared for this game when Newcastle scored the first 7 points, but Manchester basically barely got a shot away in that time as well. But it was 17-17 in the final seconds of the first quarter. They did recover a little bit for a short while.
Yeah, Manchester went to a zone, 3-2 zone, and Newcastle played hot potato basically because they've scored 7 and made some shots. They thought they could make every shot, and their shot selection diminished during in that zone. And they start with the 3 guards and Austin and Green. Green doesn't know whether to just go into the middle of the zone or to stay in the corner and be a shooter. Austin's not really looking to shoot it, so the spacing's a bit cluttered, and that kind of gave Manchester a little bit of rhythm. And Manchester, made enough offensive plays. Lee made a couple of shots. He got a couple of open threes from Anderson and that to stay close. But Manchester were pretty distracted during this game. Obviously I was in the gym watching it. If you were going to put them in football terms, you'd say they were shapeless. There was very little definition to what they were doing at either end. If you were basically going to say to me, which the team is most likely to give up someone shooting 7 of 7 from 3, I would say Manchester. That's the way it's been, and that's exactly what happened. And I thought Newcastle's bench, which I mentioned last week, kind of with the bigger kind of unit with Whitfield, Ward Hibbert, and be it Spencer or even Neighbour, they kind of got some stops. And when they got some stops, then the guards got going and they got open looks, and suddenly the open looks start falling because you've had open looks all the way through the first quarter. You missed a few, you're not going to miss them all the time. So that Newcastle ended up 16-32 from 3. Whitfield obviously 7 of 7, and their ball movement got better. And they've got a few guys who kind of like exhibition time. Let's be honest.
Yeah. So it went from 17 all in the final seconds of the first quarter to 44-23 midway through the second quarter.
I remember they had 25, didn't they? They had 25 in the first 5 minutes before the timeout.
Yeah.
They were on for a 50-point quarter, and you just, it was when Jamel shot, I think in probably in the 4 minutes, you always look for the signs in the first minutes of a game. I think about 3 minutes gone, Jamel shot a 3 from about 30 feet. If you remember, it wasn't particularly late. And I'm just thinking, these guys are, there's no fear of what is a good shot or a bad shot. There's no bit of any sanction. It doesn't feel any particular discipline. That's not picking on Jamel. It's just the way the whole team kind of looked. And obviously that's fine. You can play harem, scare him and win. You can. And you can play, let's shoot shots and get out and run. But probably helps if you've got one of the best transition finishers actually with you instead of in Manchester where Evan Walsh wasn't. So so you play that way. But then the minutes when Evan Walsh would normally come in towards the end of the first quarter, in the middle of the second quarter, and maybe give them something in transition, give them some cheap points. They didn't get any.
No.
If you don't get any, then the Newcastle scoring at the other end, then the air went out of the balloon very quickly, and the game. At that point, the game was kind of done, albeit extremely dangerous for Newcastle going forward, I thought.
Well, the only drama we could muster in the second half was whether Whitfield was going to mess up his stat line when he got to 7 of 7 from 3 to be the only player in the live stat era to make 7 threes without a miss.
Well, I actually really like Whitfield because he's probably the most disciplined of all the Newcastle players, I would say, insofar as he doesn't really make mistakes, that he doesn't make dumb plays. There's times he's not over athletic for his position. He's shooting like 45% from 3, which should always do it. But so offensively, you'd probably say, yeah, he's kind of one-dimensional. But defensively, he closes out the better than anybody else on the Newcastle team. He doesn't make mistakes. And finding units which work is now a problem for Mark because he's got 10 players now. You know, and in this game, most of them felt good about themselves. You know, they
Mm.
pulled the London basically. You know, Johnson and McGill played 23 minutes each.
Mm.
You know, so you know they're in Matt Morgan kind of figures,
Mm.
which means everybody else gets a chance to be very comfortable and confident in what is a non-threatening environment and non-threatening situation. Probably you're not going to get many more non-threatening situations like that. And when you've got 10 guys and who've all done okay, they're all going to want to play the next game, and you've got to kind of figure out which ones are going to be ready to play and which ones aren't. Newcastle, sorry, Manchester. It's just it's time for the season to end. I'm afraid.
Mm.
You know they didn't play without effort. No way. I wouldn't say that, and I've seen teams play with effort issues, but they played without much mental connection to the game, much mental focus on the game. The second half just basically dissolved into Nick Lewis dribbling the basketball and either shooting it or throwing it to legend.
Mm.
And that meant that Newcastle didn't have to do anything else in relation to kind of shutting across the shooters or space in the court or anything like that. That you can't win like that. You score a few points, you can maintain your 20 away, but those other guys aren't getting many touches. And so when they do get the touches, the ball goes up. They're not great shots. So Bossier is chucked at a few less than optimum shots. Stampley basically doesn't touch the ball unless it's a broken play, or they throw the ball to him at the top. And I mean, he made a few plays when Neighbour was guarding him because he was too quick for Neighbour, and he made a couple of shots. But you just think that you're looking for some form of, and Lee didn't play the second half, obviously, as well.
Mm.
So you're looking for some form of structure to what they're doing, and some form of attention to detail in relation to defense, and neither is apparent.
No, no. So Whitfield finished with 23 points, 8 of 8 from the floor. 23 points from 8 shots is pretty good going. And that kind of overshadowed his 7 rebounds and 6 assists, which
Yeah.
if he'd been 8 for 11, would be banging on about close to a triple double.
Of course, it's his birthday weekend, of course.
I
So
didn't know that. Is
no,
it? It's his
birthday
birthday.
weekend.
Oh, nice.
And it took me back to a famous game that you commentated on in 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
Sorry, 2012, 2013. That's Surrey Sports Park when my Eagles team played Surrey on the birthday of one Kareem Maddox.
Oh, right. Yes. Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and Kareem went for, from memory, 26, 21 rebounds, 4 blocks, 5 assists, something like that. And at one point, I think we figured out he'd taken every rebound in the first quarter until about 2 minutes to go in the quarter. And it was his birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you try.
I'm
Obviously,
trying to look it up now because I do
find it.
remember it. So let's have a look. The rebounds is probably the easiest one to filter on,
Yeah,
isn't it? Because it'll be whatever the biggest number is. 21 or 20? That's the
20
question.
maybe.
Let's try both of them. So there was here we go. This is, yes, Surrey away on the 24th of February 2013. Does that
About
sound
right. Yeah.
about right?
Yeah.
26 points, 12 of 18 shooting. He even took a 3.
Yeah.
20 rebounds, 10 offensive, 10 defensive, 4 assists, 3 steals, 4 blocks.
Yeah. Yeah.
For an efficiency rating of 47.
Yeah,
Not
that was
bad. Not
a,
bad.
a birthday game. um, for those who don't know, Kareem was one of the smartest guys. He was a guy from Princeton. That guy from Princeton, next
Mm,
guy we sent to Princeton's in the NBA or
mm,
nearly. Was 6'8" with spider arms.
mm.
Used to drink about 7 shots of coffee before every game just to get him going. And is actually recently, and it still may be, on the USA 3v3 team.
He was, yeah. I don't know if he still is.
Until
Yeah.
very recently. I don't know if he's going to be in the Olympics. But if you see him, give him a shout out. Yeah, great. Birthday game. So Devon Whitfield, birthday game.
Johnson 17 points, Austin 15. You mentioned they were 16 of 32 from 3. 25 points off turnovers, 13 second chance points as well. Nick Lewis 26 points from 26 shots, 5 assists. Robertin 14 points and 7 rebounds. Most of them actually from the free throw line. He shot well from the free throw line. Lee and Stampley 11. So that win qualified Leicester and Newcastle for the playoffs. So to Caledonia. Caledonia Gladiators 76, London Lions 82. No Whelan, Ali Hodgic and Jimenez, and obviously DeBose. Decker, Nawaba, Nelson were out for London, but Shalawadi was back. It took me longer to work out who wasn't playing, to be honest with you, than the rest of it. Green and Police, Malcolm all hit threes. Caledonia out to an 18-11 lead after 8 minutes.
Yeah, this was it was a game that Caledonia let get away actually, because it probably wouldn't have been London's first choice, to be flat. We're going straight up to East Kilbride after Wednesday night, because they're playing both a solid team and there's a significant amount of distance, and they've got their fish to fry in Romania next week. I don't think it does them any harm having a game, but I'm not sure that Friday in East Kilbride would have been their chosen one. And obviously they're very careful with Decker and Nwaba and Nelson, and those three. I previously mentioned Nelson has possibly been the most important guy, certainly in the British Basketball League, on their team, because of the way that he kind of is always there. He's always on it, or generally always on it, even for the British Basketball League games. And losing Decker and Nwaba it changes things. It puts some of the other guys in. It gives some of the other guys minutes. So players who are out of rhythm, haven't played much, like Sandy and Kaboza and Soluade, they are now playing minutes, substantial minutes in this game, because coach is quite properly trying to make sure no one gets hurt, but also trying to win the game. So he's on this kind of 22 minutes thing again. Nobody's getting much more than 22 minutes. And so the game was there. Now, Caledonia, different team, because they don't have Aliodzic, so Moore has to play more. And there's an argument that makes them a more dangerous team to play against. Not quite as physically powerful, but certainly more dangerous team. And obviously missing Whelan as well, it basically means that Green and Bothwell know that they're playing until they're tired, and when they're not tired, going back in again. So there's no juggling for the coach to do. And we've talked so many times previously about how that simplicity can aid a team's performance. What happened in this game was, however, that Olasheni decided he didn't want to lose. Because Sharma and Morgan weren't there. Sharma and Connor Morgan came off the bench and they were not there mentally. They were you could just, if you look at the things that I'm looking at, you could see, the decision making was a step slow or whatever. And London's bench really, really struggled. Because a couple of the better guys, weren't carrying it the way they should. And Gabe kind of kept them close. And their defense and John Taylor as well, to be fair, and their competitiveness in their defense, because even though the younger guys are playing, they're not screwing up defensively. They're out there being physical. They're trying to do the right things. And I thought when the game got, unfortunately, you can take us through the fourth quarter, but when the game got close, and Bozic was able to put his 5 guys on the court in the fourth quarter, they had the competitive juice and spirit, which they didn't necessarily have to have, to crank up their defense. And I thought it took Caledonia out of everything that they wanted to do.
Yeah. Mid third quarter, it was a 12-2 run, capped by 4 points from Moore, that had the Gladiators 54-47 ahead. Most of the second quarter was a shot or two either way. Lead peaked at 9. It was 68-60 with 6 to play. And then Gabriel Lasheni had 8 points in a row to tie it. Matt Morgan a 3 to put London 68-71 ahead with 4 to go. Bothwell then tied it with the 3. Phillip a couple of big plays in a 7-0 run. So that's basically an 18-3 spell in 5 minutes for London, which is to the point you were making about.
That's when they decided, the difference between that and this quarterfinal in Scotland last year, when they had the chance to put those guys in the court and they didn't. In this game, he decided, I don't care, we're not going to. I say, hey, Bozic decided we are not going to remain here on a loss. And to be fair, Jordan Taylor as well led that. You see it kind of courses through his veins. That when they got into the fourth quarter, I was like, okay, we ain't losing to you guys. Okay, whatever the meaningless nature of the game to us, we are not losing this game. And Olasheni, obviously with his 19 rebounds, did that. But it also meant that he could have, basically, look, what it comes down to is that for most of that game, when London obtained an advantage offensively and they're throwing the ball, penetrating the middle and getting a kick out to the corner, right? They're kicking it out to Sandy, or they're kicking it out to Kaboza, or they're kicking it out to Queely, who are guys that might make the shot, but it's not kicking it out to Sam Decker, who you know is going to make the shot, or Nawaba, who you know is going to dunk it on the baseline. Okay, so you have maybe 5 or 6 empty possessions because Caledonia defend it right, and those guys aren't shooting the basketball at that point, or aren't shooting the basketball. Well, I think Kaboza made one maybe. Okay, but when you get down the crunch, in the crunch, suddenly you got Grantham, you got Philip, you got Jordan Taylor, Olasheni, and I think they had
Matt Morgan.
Matt Morgan. Yeah,
Yeah.
Matt Morgan. So 3 guards and those guys. And it's like, okay, okay, who are we going to leave now? And more than that, those guys are used to playing defense at a level whereby they have a switch and they flick the switch. Now, the game is about the game. And in fact, the whole Glad's team is now, very much on the shoulder of Quadia Green. He is now the head of the snake. He's kind of ascended to that position extremely quickly, but he's got the game to carry it. Yeah. But you still have, but having the game to carry is one thing, but can you do it when you're under real pressure from really good guards? And unfortunately, he didn't find solutions for them in this game in the last 6 minutes. And that's why he ended up with 26 or 27 shots and 1 assist. And he
10
missed
for 27 he was shooting.
10 for 27, but he made most of them in the first half. Yeah. And then they were able to guard him and shut him down. And Caledonia didn't have any kind of answers to that, other than even the shot Bothwell made, because it was a step back individual 3. It was just an individual talent play. So it was basically a game which, really outlined London's competitive spirit. It leads you well into thinking for Wednesday. They could have bombed that game. No, I'm not going to be coming on the air, or nobody else is going to be coming and saying, "Oh, they didn't try hard enough," or anything like that. They could have bombed it. It's 2 days after that game, and even more so could they have bombed it when they're down 9 with 6 minutes to go.
Yeah.
But instead, you got Taylor, Olasheni, like true vets, and then Matt Morgan and all those other guys. They stepped up and they said, "No, you ain't beating us here." And that was, I thought, again, that was super impressive. I don't think Caledonia played badly. They're 2 guys down as well. I just thought it was a question of London's will overpowering them, and they didn't have to have that will. So that's good.
Yeah. Green 25 points. Moore had 11 points, 10 rebounds. Malcolm 11. They shot 34% from the floor, 24% from 3. Matt Morgan.
A pretty dubious unsportsmanlike in this game on the fast break.
Yeah, that was a weird one, wasn't it?
Yeah, kind of. He didn't call it from the baseline. I'm looking at it, watching it back, and it's Oscar Baldwin reaching around from behind for steal. I'm like, there was one in the second half whereby I think someone grabbed maybe Onwas's arm as he was Onwas's other arm as he was going for a layup, which I thought was far more unsportsmanlike. Yeah, I don't want to see get too interventionist with all these unsportsmanlike.
Yeah.
Not good.
No, it was one of them where I saw it and I was like, wow. And then I thought, oh, I must have missed something.
Around him back.
But yeah, didn't. Anyway. Matt Morgan, 22 points, 5 assists. Olaseni, 13 points, 19 rebounds. That's the most by anybody this year in a game. I've got Philip and Queely
as well. He must have played what, 26 minutes, maybe?
I don't have that.
Yeah.
I've got Philip and Queely with 1, which I assume should be 11. 41% field goal, 27% 3. So not great, but better than Caledonia. 0 points from turnovers and 2 second chance points for London. That is the lowest I can find by a winning team since Leicester in 2015, February 2015. They had 2 points from turnovers and no second chance points against Leeds and won 76-50 at Leeds.
That Leeds team was a pain to play in that gym. I remember that gym. Didn't like it. Wet floor. Didn't like it.
Yeah. So let's go to Saturday. Yes, Saturday. Cheshire Phoenix playing. It's been a few years since they played on a Saturday. Cheshire Phoenix 95, Plymouth City Patriots 73. Obviously, we've heard now that Faulkner's gone home for rehab. Hart, some early threes. Wiley playing well. Plymouth matching Cheshire in the early stages.
Yeah. Cheshire playing I thought. I mean, Joe made a couple of early threes, which helped them get on the board. Cheshire were playing. They wouldn't say it's half speed, but they were knocking down all the shots that they could knock down. Plymouth are not the easiest team to actually play against because they don't generally give you the basketball. In fact, their problem is probably that they actually move the ball a little bit too much, but they don't have anybody to get an advantage offensively. So the ball is going from side to side quite a lot, but it's going from side to side for not much purpose. You're relying on people making, tough shots like Joe Hart making some threes or ending up throwing it into Wiley in the mid post, and he has to make a play like 18 feet out, which isn't a particularly high percentage option, because it's a contested 2-point jump shot, and so they're not getting much easy. Levi gets the hustle plays, but he doesn't get much easy scoring for them. And but they do eat up the shot clock, and I thought Cheshire were out of rhythm for most of the first half. And kind of Plymouth were keeping them at bay. But the problem Plymouth have is it's very, very tough to do that for Cheshire for 40 minutes because they are so exploitable. And they do have that kind of individual talent differential. And a lot of Cheshire's game is basically based around finding mismatches. Letting Rideau kind of figure out where the mismatch is, when to run a pick and pop, who's he going to run it with? Is he going to throw it to Siauliai? Is he going to throw it to Siauliai? Is he going to penetrate and try and throw it to one of the guys in the corner? Because they're really, really disciplined on having players in the corner. They do a great job of getting to their spots. And then Rai is the X factor who can make whatever play he wants effectively. And Plymouth, Dusha got into a bit of foul trouble. And I thought they played with more spirit than they did at Sheffield, certainly. But they're just short of Green having that that monster game where he makes everything, short of kind of that hail of threes game whereby you get the 3-point variance, keeps you in the game. It's difficult to see, and then winning on the road, it really is.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Cheshire's spurt ability. Their spurt came at the start of the second half. White and Shagwar hitting threes. If you actually run it back to the last minute of the second quarter, the score went from 37-38 to 54-40. So 17 to 2.
And it's one of those things whereby if you're Plymouth, you walk into the locker room, you're feeling quite good about yourself. Hey, we're doing all right. We're hanging with these guys. Yeah, great. If you're Cheshire, you walk into the locker room and you give them a piece of your mind and say, these guys are hanging with you? Really? And so they come out with a little bit more focus, and Plymouth kind of trying to play in the same rhythm, but the same rhythm ain't cutting it anymore because Cheshire have kind of stepped up half a step. And the obvious example of that is the pick and pop threes, is the Siauliai threes. It's really, particularly in March because the season's ending and people are thinking it's still true. The ugly things win basketball games. The ugly stuff. How do you get into somebody? How do you get into a 3-point shooter's space without fouling? Particularly one who's basically not dribbling inside the 2-point line. Which side of the are you shading a guy towards? Are you forcing him right or are you forcing him left? Do you understand the scout report? How committed are you to the closeout? How committed are you to making the extra pass or the extra second pass? And Cheshire kind of vacillate with that because they are so quick with their offense. They will often, I've said it before, I think they must pass the ball less than any other team in the league, but they still get good shots. So the argument is, well, we don't need to pass the ball for the sake of passing the ball. Any point of that. We get the ball to our shooters who know when they're meant to shoot it. And then we go and rebound the hell out of it. And that's been a formula which has really worked for them. So it's in no way a criticism, but when you've played like that, when you're a Leicester team on the road and you've played a good half against a slightly better team, that's when you have to have the fear. As a coach, you've got to try and get it's very difficult because the players are feeling good about themselves, but it's very difficult to kind of get that fear into the players. Say, look, they're going to go up a notch, we got to go up 2 notches. And I don't think Plymouth were really kind of ready for that. They need to make threes with that team as well. They need Dusha. Dusha needs to be a kind of a 2010 guy, I'm afraid, because they're not going to get enough easy points from everybody else to hang with a team like Cheshire.
Jack was 7 of 11 for 22 points. Shagwar was also 7 of 11 for 20 points and 7 rebounds. And Kristen 6 of 10 for 17 points. So pretty efficient leading scorers there. They were 15 of 40 from 3-point range. Rideau had 14 assists, which is the most of anybody this season. And he has 5 of the 9 games this year where somebody's had at least 12 assists.
Yeah, I
Why?
mean, to be
Yeah,
honest,
go on.
just on that, I mean, I think the probably reason for that is you think about it, London's point guards don't play enough.
Mm,
Leicester had a point guard, but kind of got rid of him, Pinson. And so their point guards aren't really creative guards. Newcastle have 2 of them who share 12 assists a game.
mm,
Caledonia really didn't really have a point guard either. They had kind of combo guards and Dubose and I think and Bristol's point guards have been injured.
mm,
So it's probably been a little bit of a down year in relation to kind of individual. You know, you haven't seen a Fletcher, for instance,
no.
flying around putting up 15 a game, and Rideau's kind of stepped out and kind of raised himself above, the level of more. Rideau is his defense. His offense is the offense will come and go, but it's his defense which kind of separates him.
Wiley, 20 points, 10 rebounds. Atwood, 17 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, and Copeland with 10. So let's come to today. Bristol Flyers 101, Leicester Riders 71, a 500th league game for Rob Paternostro, not one that he will remember fondly, I should imagine. 2 early fouls on Thomas. It's 11-11 after 6 minutes. Allen then got a second foul and then flies on a 15-4 run. Ollison with 7 of them to 31-17.
And this was just an old-fashioned beatdown.
Mm.
I'm trying to think of mitigation for Leicester, but they hadn't played this week, had they? So it's 2 o'clock on a Sunday.
2 o'clock on a Sunday.
Maybe Surrey played 2 o'clock on a Sunday for years, and Leicester always win there. But it's still not. It's not great. I suppose Leicester have struggled a bit in that gym in the recent years.
I think Leicester have a pretty poor record on a Sunday.
Yeah,
I don't know what that means.
That's not great. Well, but they're brilliant on a Tuesday.
Tuesday nights, they're undefeated. Yeah.
What kind of? I didn't think they were ready for this game.
I thought they struggled a little bit with the physicality of it, in the fact that there was a few things where they felt hard done to, and then a few things where they got whistles at the other end, and they felt
in the first quarter. Bristol set the tone with the physicality, and that basically, I think, probably did let them play. But if you look, there's about the second possession of this game, maybe the third possession of this game. The ball ends up with Levi Bradley on the wing in front of the camera, in front of the bench. And Myron Thomas is the nearest guy, and it's like the third possession, and he's probably got 1 foot inside the paint, and he doesn't even move towards him, right? And I saw that, my eyes kind of popped out, because he's a shooter, and the first possession of the game, the third possession of the game, you're flying at him, you're running out at him. Look, coach, I'm doing what you told me to do, whatever. And he was just there. And that's what I was talking about, little things, closing out, and that's kind of the signs I'm looking for. Kimball missed a couple of open kind of 15-footers, which he wouldn't normally miss early on, and so they didn't get into a rhythm that way. And then their bench, Bristol's bench Bristol's starters against some of Leicester's bench just absolutely kind of destroyed them. Shelton couldn't guard Green at all. Mentally, Bristol got right up into Leicester, as you say. Maybe there was a couple of calls Leicester could have got. I didn't see anything egregious, but you could feel the physicality on the TV.
The 2 that stuck out to me was there was the one on Washington where he's probably fouled twice by Samuels, and then he pushes him off, and it's sort of like, well, I know the two that they didn't call, you can understand why they didn't call it, but then if you call an offensive foul, you're going, well, he's retaliating for the other one. And then Allen's third, I'm not sure. Dan said, how long does he have to be stationary before you get
I thought that was Holmes, actually. I thought when they called it on Holmes on the kind of the reach. Yeah, but at that point in time, the aggressors were winning. Basically.
It was already 20-point game at the point that Allen got his third foul.
It was just the aggressive. They were the more aggressive. It was almost like Leicester kind of walked into a buzzsaw. They walked into something they weren't expecting. And to be fair, none of us were expecting Bristol to drop 94 points in 3 quarters on anybody, because it's just not happened. And so, to a certain degree, there's some 3-point shooting variance there. Lucas against Siauliai missed airballed 3 threes from the corner. I mean, the first half of that game, they must have airballed 5 threes. In this game, Lucas is making shot after shot, you know. So if you look at it, you think, oh wow, here we go. What you probably didn't see from Leicester, which you would normally see, and I'm not even probably saying normally see. This is why it's so counterproductive to go back years, because it's a totally different team. The name's the first, the name of the shares are first, is the same, but the team itself is totally different. And the team, and you only put out the players you've got on the floor. You can't win games with reputation. You know, Drew Sullivan is not defending. You know, you know what I mean. But what you didn't see was much kind of a challenge. I mean, Ado was no points in 16 minutes, didn't really have an impact. He's a talented guy. Shelton, you know, couldn't protect the rim other than like one block shot. It was basically a layup line for Bristol when they wanted it. And if it was a layup line, then Green was getting it and scoring at will inside. And that was kind of a bit disconcerting from my perspective, because that's kind of not what you expect. And saying that, you know, it's going to happen.
I think
the league is now. It's going to happen to every team. I think once or twice it's going to run into something whereby they aren't quite ready. The opposition is ready. You add in 3-point shooting variants. You lose a couple of calls. You get your own heads, and then things go, because teams now are different to when I was talking about 7 or 8 years ago.
But even I'm pretty sure one of the Gino years they got bombed down there as well. Like
you know,
25 or
that's when Gentry Thomas went off. I think, might be wrong. But yeah, so it can happen. But it was a bit, you know, if it was Manchester who'd gone down like that, I'd be saying, oof. No. So Leicester don't really escape. You know, that team shouldn't be losing by 40 to anybody. Whichever way you look at it. So there's a bit of it's a mental thing, not a physical thing. So there's kind of a mental approach there. But we're in that part of the season. You know, they qualified for the playoffs last week. They know they're probably not going to finish. This is the players, not the coaches, by the way. They know that they're probably not going to finish 8th. Certainly not going to finish 8th. And everybody else is just
and they're not going to finish 2nd or 3rd. So therefore, what's the difference?
It's unlikely to finish 2nd or 3rd. I mean, they had an outside shot, but I don't think if you think that Jaron Holmes and Ted Allen are thinking, oh, we got to finish 3rd so we can, you know, so we can avoid London to the. I don't think those guys are thinking like that. Those guys are just, you know, and Bristol on the other side of the hump, because they're coming off it. They're coming off some losses. Suddenly you look at Bristol, they're 11 and 16. You think, well, hang on, this was a good team. You know, this team was just taking Charlie to 8 and could have beat them. You know, how are they 11 and 16? So they're now being challenged because they've lost a few games in a row, and so kind of they get the bounce back. They get the bounce back win. So it kind of does happen. You know, we're into kind of home team bounce back winning situations now. It's happening quite a lot, and it takes away. It makes it kind of easier for bet with Dave, but the rest of it isn't great.
Somebody was bemoaning the lack of betting with Dave.
Well, when Bet365 gets onto me and, you know, offers me the moolah, then we'll restart it. But I think it needs to be a sponsored. So any of our 20 odd viewers who happen to work in a high powered job in a betting agency, there you go. Think of it, you know.
So it was 61-36 at halftime, which is Flyers' best ever half score in a half at the Wise. Their previous high was 69 in a playoff game against the Eagles in April 2017. It was the second half, 59. And it's
I think I remember that. Yeah, that was Hamid Ali, I think.
Yeah, I think it was that.
That was a Hamid Ali, and we were up by 25 at half time. And I was at half time, it was mad, Jim, absolutely mad, Jim. And Hamid Ali was kind of the nearest thing I've ever seen to Trey Moore since Trey Moore he was kind of crackers, but he could just go off. He was 6'3". And when he was connected to everything, you know, it was a very un-Bristol thing, because for the 4 years before Hamid Ali, Bristol had ran the most beautiful sets and then passed the ball, moved the ball, and done all this stuff, but hadn't won much. And then Andreas got Hamid Ali, and he just basically, and he eventually let him take over the team, and he took over the team, and it was a bugger to guard them. We played them on a Thursday and a Friday night in the playoffs, and that might have been the year before actually, but anyway, we played them on a Thursday night and a Friday. We only got beaten by about a point. I remember we were a good team. and it was all because of him. But we're up 25, and I was thinking at half time, I just want to get out of the gym now, and I'll take 5. And that sounds absolutely crazy. That's the negativity of a coach, as opposed to the optimism of the players. But they just flew within. The team went down early. You know, they play faster in the second half. And as soon as they started playing faster, in that gym, we struggled. You know, you couldn't score for score with them. But I remember that game, yeah.
It was their third highest in total anywhere. They had obviously 68 in the trophy against Manchester a few weeks back and 63 at Cheshire in April 22.
Yeah, Tevin Ollison, very, very good again. You know, the one thing I liked about Tevin Ollison is the way he guarded Teddy Allen very well. He's kind of, again, a certain type of guy. He's got to be slightly smaller but quick and willing to kind of be physical and not give up the open threes, and made Teddy Allen have to drive to the rim. And that kind of takes him out of what he prefers to do, which is to shoot the three. So he was only 4 of 14. I thought that was a big point in the game, but it was more, he scored 30, yeah, but his defense leads to the offense. It's always a defense, always a defense.
10 of 14 he was for 31 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. Johnson 9 of 12 for 23 points and 5 steals
too
as
quick
well.
for them. They couldn't stay in front of him. The bigs couldn't stay in front of him. He was just electric.
Green 20 points and 15 rebounds. Holmes 9 of 13 for 20 points. Thomas 15 points. McKenzie 12 points and 4 assists.
Well, Holmes played well. I like Holmes. He's very consistent at what he does. Very consistent. Just that when they got down, they ended up kind of one-shotting Bristol either end, you know, and the quality of their shots kind of diminished when they got down again. And so they were just ready to get out of the gym as well.
Yeah, they were. Upside of a 2 o'clock game, you get home earlier. Caledonia Gladiators 98, Newcastle 80.
Yeah, when we played the 2 o'clock games in Surrey, we were delighted. We got home for 11 o'clock. It was great. Yeah.
Well, you had court in the morning, Dave. So
3 o'clock in Plymouth, fantastic. I'll be back for 2 o'clock in the morning. Thanks, Dan. I'll be grateful for little mercies.
Yeah. Agreeing with a couple of early fouls for Newcastle.
It would soon change if we played games at 3 o'clock on Friday afternoons in Newcastle. I'll tell you that. They wouldn't be that keen.
Anyway, we don't want the A1M at that time. Agreeing with a couple of early fouls. Omas was on the bench not long after that with 2 early fouls. Caledonia with a late 12-2 run in the first quarter to take the lead, but a banked running 3 on the buzzer from Johnson made it 27-18.
Good job Johnson showed up for this game because not many of the Newcastle Eagles did. This was actually a winnable game for Newcastle, but they'd won 4 in a row and they'd come off a really comfortable, happy 30-point win, which is always a really, really dangerous situation when the opposition's come off a loss. You could see, I thought they didn't start out. Their starting lineup Newcastle starting lineup has been struggling. I mean, I know they went 7-0 against Manchester, but that was 3 players. The starting lineup has kind of been struggling a little bit. Green, basically unplayable at this point defensively. Onwas, I think in 4 minutes, Onwas drove on him twice to his right hand, which is the absolute scouting report for Onwas is that you don't let him go to his right, drive on you. And both times because Green stood up in front of him and didn't, wasn't in a stance. Then the other Green, Quade Green went baseline on him and he was unable to keep him in front of him as well, and he gave up an and one to him. And that kind of throws Newcastle off because his energy players, they need a little bit from him offensively, but defensively, just you can't give up that type of. So that scouting report, first 5 minutes, that's the guy you've got to be guarded. You've got to know everything about him. You just cannot give that up to Prince Onwas. So that meant that they came early with Neighbour. I don't think Neighbour was expecting to come in at the 2.5-minute point in the game. He was over 3. And by the time I looked into the problem with having 10 guys, so Newcastle had 10 guys playing who'd all played on Friday night. They were all in the game by the end of the first quarter. And 2 minutes in the second quarter, I looked at the stats and the bench was 2 of 11. And that was your 12-point lead. That was your 12-point lead. Now, the reality is it's a basketball truism, but role players play better at home than they do on the road.
Yeah.
And the reality of this game was that Newcastle's role players, and that's Neighbour, Spencer, Ward Hibbert, and Ward Hibbert's kind of deteriorated the last 3 games. His focus hasn't been anywhere near. He made some very un-Ward Hibbert-like mistakes from my eyes. And to a certain degree, Del Pesce was a bit unfair because he was playing with the other guys,
Mm.
and obviously McGill's already got his 2 fouls. They weren't able to they were playing, but they weren't able to hang. Now, 4 weeks ago, they might not have been playing because half of them were hurt. So the other guys are playing the minutes and they're getting into a rhythm, which incidentally is the same position that Caledonia are now in.
Yeah.
Whereby they've got their rotation is basically set because they've only got 7. They've got 7 players and Oscar Baldwin coming in to spell
More.
the Moor. Right, so the Moor's not worrying about playing 20 minutes and having Ali Hodzic play 20 minutes. Bothwell and Green aren't worried about Whelan eating up a third of their minutes, and Kyle Johnson is getting regular minutes at kind of really time. So everything kind of works for Caledonia, but it doesn't work for Newcastle. It works for Newcastle when they're playing against Manchester, who aren't guarding them properly, and then that's all around different thing in a game at Caledonia, where Caledonia, of course, have already lost twice to Newcastle this year. And whilst I don't like historical stats, I'll still set up the 41-5 that Tahir mentioned on the commentary in relation to the game since 2008. So if any of you Scotsmen are getting happy, 5 and 41, right?
I think that's league games only, isn't it?
Yeah, no, there's at least a couple of cup finals in there.
Yeah. So what did it do? What did I have? I did 53-9 since November 2008, or 40-8 since November 2011 is all comps.
Yeah, well, there might have been a couple of meaningless games in there. Who knows? Might have given them a couple, but no, seriously, look, Caledonia absolutely deserved this game. Newcastle, I mean, the head of the snake is Claudia Green. Newcastle utterly failed to have any commitment to defending him in any specific way. I couldn't figure out whether they were showing him left, showing him right. I couldn't really figure out whether they were throwing extra bodies at him, whether they were what they were trying to do. Basically, he was comfortable the whole game. The one thing they did do, they put Ward Hibbert on him, they put Whitfield on him, try to get a bit more length on him. But if you're defending somebody with length, you still have to have a strategy for how you're going to deal with it. Are you going to go take a further step back and keep him in front of you? Or are you going to trap him when he gets to the wing? Or are you going to send him to his left? I didn't think they had that, and he absolutely ran this game. I mean, he was 30-9. He was great. He was awesome. And at half time, because I tweeted something about him on Friday night, where he said 27 shots and 1 assist isn't great for a point guard in his 4th game for the rest of the team. And yet at half time in this game, he had 5 shots, 12 points, and 4 assists.
Yeah.
Which is like, okay, I got the message, coach.
Yeah.
I'm doing, and he was so much better, and they were so much better. Now, obviously, Newcastle don't have the length, the size, of the commitment to the defense that London had, but nevertheless, he shot 27 shots against London. And he had 30 points today on what 15 shots, and 9 assists instead of 1.
8.
But that 8 assists, that is a sea change. In relation to his approach to the game. It's not all about what he's facing. It's about how he's seeing the game and what he's figuring out his role on the team has to be. And they're 400% better for it. I thought also Newcastle, I thought this was a pretty fussy referee game early on.
So the one thing I noted down was midway in the second quarter, we had another one. We had one about, was it last week, the week before, where whilst the referees had come together to discuss whether the 3-point shot from Johnson was away before the foul from Delpesh, the replay came in and showed no, it wasn't, and then they gave the 3 anyway.
Well, they gave the 3. I mean, I thought that was a pretty awful call, to be honest. I thought Delpesh was kind of strolling down the lane as opposed to running down with any degree, and Poliza fell over. And I thought, my hackles were up a little early on when I think the first call of the game, Austin got called for an offensive foul on a dribble handoff where he stood still by Simon Unsworth, who's 30 feet the other side of the court with Tom Muddyman right in front of it. And I watched it back and it's like, well, he's just handed the ball off, and then Green's kind of bounced off him and fell over. And you can't make that call from 30 feet away. But, at half time, Caledonia had 19 foul shots, and most of that was because Newcastle weren't adjusting to the physicality of the game, and they were not committed defensively to the harder stuff. There was a few reaches and stuff like that. A little bit of that was because there was some pretty fussy kind of fouls, which were getting both teams into the penalty. But once you're in the penalty, you got to be smarter.
Yeah, exactly. It was 18. I mean? They were 17 of 18 for
17. No, I think I almost missed one on an and one at the end. I thought
17 of 18
at half time.
Yeah. Because you tweeted out they were 18 of 18, and I went, really? And I went and had a look and saw they were 17 of 18. I
I
thought
thought
I
it was
won't
18 of
correct it.
19.
No,
Are you sure it wasn't 18 of 19?
No, because you put 18 of 18 on your tweet, so I then looked at the
Oh,
free throw stats, and it said 17 of
I'm
18.
gonna go back and count them all.
I thought about correcting
No,
you, but I
no,
decided
that's
against it.
fine. Correction. I take correction with
So
good.
McGill had 5 in a 7-0 run by the Eagles, but then picked up his third foul, and Caledonia had 6 points in the final minute, 6 unanswered points in the final minute to lead by 12 at halftime,
Newcastle had
49-37.
multiple opportunities in this
Mm,
game to close the gap, where they were on the verge of some runs, but
mm,
they couldn't string 2 defensive possessions together. They couldn't ultimately guard Green at all. And even when he wasn't in the game, you had a situation like in the third quarter where Waterbitt's giving up a strong side 3 to Poliza off a 1 dribble penetration, and then immediately looks at the coach and puts his hand up. Well, that don't work.
mm.
And then I think Johnson went back down the other end before anybody noticed and made a layup. But even so, and then the next play, Police is getting another one, and then or Fraser Malcolm in the corner, and the closeout isn't what it needs to be on Fraser Malcolm when he's playing north of the border. You just can't do that. And so Johnson misses a 3, then Malcolm makes a 3, that type of thing. So they had every opportunity to kind of to put the hammer down. But other than Jordan Johnson, who obviously playing at his old gym. And to be fair, Malcolm Delpeche, to a certain degree as well, really got kind of into it with the physicality of it. There wasn't, again, it was that seesaw. There wasn't a seesaw moment.
No, there wasn't.
And there wasn't enough, because Delpeche was playing very well. That meant the 4 didn't play as much, and they almost needed them both because they had a massive gap at the 4 spot, because Green couldn't guard anybody. Spencer couldn't make a shot. Ward Hibbert, as I say, he's playing like he doesn't. I don't see what I would expect to see out of him in relation to his focus. He's not knocking down shots, but defensively, he's not. I don't think where he needs to be, and that meant that in a game like that, if a neighbour played the 4 in the first few minutes, he was over 3 and was struggling to guard anybody. So they had a massive gap there, and they couldn't fill it.
As you've just told me, I'm allowed to pick you up on mistakes. East end of Glasgow is not quite East Kilbride, so it's not quite the old gym for Johnson, but I take the point that you make.
Yeah.
McGill also got his 4th foul 2 minutes into the third quarter, which didn't help. Eagles had a 7-0 run to cut it to 70-63 in the first play of the 4th quarter, but then a Malcolm 3 in the corner, 4 points from Green, back to double figures in the middle of the 4th quarter, and
they had to be able to guard Green at some point. They had to be able to discomfort him at some point to have a chance in that game. In fact, every team going forward is going to have to be able to find a way of guarding Green and discomforting him, because as they get more comfortable with him, I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago. You've got Green, Whelan and Poliza on the wings. Malcolm another one. And Clifton Moore with the lob threat. You're going to have to find a way now. I think the way you have to guard Green is, all his assists today are thrown basically to the big guy, or he's looking to score. The one flaw, not even a flaw, but the one weakness in his game is his size. He's probably 5'11", and where you can kind of, put together a strategy is in relation to, sending an extra guy from the weak side and making him throw the ball across the court, because he hasn't got the size to see over. So you crunch the lane. Now that might mean you're leaving his shooter out there, but you're going to crowd him so that he can't throw the pocket pass to the big guy. He can't throw it to the strong side. Now the middle screen rule is a bit different, because how do you guard the middle? Because you got to keep him in front of you, and then you're risking it. Then you're relying on the fact that he might not make threes. So I think the middle screen rules are difficult. I think the wing screen rules, I think you can guard him, but you've really got to be on point. And the teams are playing so many games now, and they're kind of a little bit tired. I think the teams are tired. I know they've had breaks, but I just think mentally some of the teams are tired. There's not that much jeopardy on the games. They're not strategizing for these games like their playoff finals, or they're not executing like their playoff finals. And that's the same for Leicester at Bristol. They're not, or even some of the other games that we've seen this weekend. So no, I thought it was. It was Quadri Green primarily, but Caledonia were far more ready for that game. Second game at home in the weekend. We previously kind of talked about how that can can help. The home team generally play well when they've got 2 games at home the weekend. But they were just ready to play. They knocked down the shots they were meant to do. But as I say, that when I see the first 2 plays of the game, Prince Onwas driving right down the middle of Taj Green and scoring on twice, all that is closing out the right way with your body angling the right way. If you can't get that right on the first 2 plays of the game, like Myron Thomas, if you're not going to run off a shooter the first 2 plays of the game, you're not going to get that back. That is a cancer. It eats into your team because the coach looks at you and thinks, I can't really put him in there. I can't play him against that guy.
I forgot to mention that actually that was the biggest win since January 2008 for Caledonia against
So
Newcastle.
basically, what you say is that was the biggest win pre-Dave.
Pre-Dave.
Pre-Dave. That was January.
Never happened on your
That
shift,
was
Dave.
December 2009. We got a bit of a spanking there the year that we had Nims and Jay Sean and
15, I think it was.
Yeah, I think Tony G was coaching them at that point, and our guys were not ready for that game at all.
The biggest one I saw was 15 because I was thinking if they make a 3-year, this is going to ruin my
You
start.
ruin your start. No. Look, I mean that was it was a really good win for Caledonia. They needed it because they should have won on Friday night, but the way they won was impressive because they scored 98 points, but more importantly, they got an awesome game out of Green.
Yeah.
He's the head of the snake, and he scores 30 points on 15 shots and has 8 assists as well. You're not going to beat them.
No. 33 points, 13 of 15 shooting, 8 assists for Green. Moore had 18 points, 17 rebounds, 4 blocks, and Police had 13 points.
I mean, there's a real interesting kind of thing with Moore and Ali Hodzic, because Moore has elevated his game, and Moore is a real. He's a real high upside player. He has long arms. He finishes well around the rim. He has good hands, and he's probably in every other BBL team. He's playing 30 minutes. Not apart from London, obviously, but every other BBL team's playing 30 minutes now. If he's sharing minutes and coming off the bench, when he's coming off the bench, he's arguably less effective because he's not playing with Poliza, and he's not playing with with the starters who are spacing the floor better. Particularly now they've got a kind of a point guard in Green who is looking to be a consummate pick and roll point guard. So, I can't see Ali Hodzic starting again when they come back. I mean, he might change it, he might do it that way. But I don't know how long his injury is going to be. But I think they're probably going to have to start him and let him play through and use, Faro probably a little bit more sparingly. Because they are very, very different with him on the court.
Johnson, 25 points, 5 assists. McGill, 13.6 assists. Delpesh, there's your 11, not 12, but yeah. Delpesh, 11. So league table looks as thus. London are 29 and 3. Cheshire now with a 3-game advantage, 18 and 9. Caledonia 17 and 12. Newcastle 15 and 12. Leicester 15 and 14. Sheffield 13 and 15. Bristol 12 and 16, and Surrey 12 and 17, Manchester 7 and 22, and Plymouth 5 and 23.
Yeah. Middle is a bit like a lot of bald men fighting over comb, isn't it?
It's a little bit.
I hope I've not used that before. Sorry if I have. Apologies to anybody who is hirsutely challenged.
You've just insulted half of our referees here.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I think they're. I'm not sure why there is kind of this cult of baldness amongst the refereeing fraternity. I mean, they can't all be. Obviously, there's 34 of them now, so I mean, at least half 17. And I'm going to pull you up on that stat and say because you got to take the ladies out because we don't have any bald lady refs.
No.
So and I can think of at least the 14 or 15 blokes with a decent shape. I think you're probably wrong on that. But then again, I was wrong about East Kilbride. I think you like that because that would be childish and petty.
We're nothing if not childish and petty.
And petty, absolutely. No. It's fortunately no new refs this week, so we couldn't add the tally.
You don't have to say anything at this point, Dave. We can just.
No, I don't. There are some games next week, aren't there? But there's the All-Star.
I think there's only one, isn't there? Is there?
Newcastle's playing Sheffield. I think that was a last-minute entrant.
Yeah, I think there's one game been stuck in that wasn't originally there. It's just that.
Yeah.
So executive decision. We're not doing it next week.
Okay, that's fine. Well, we have got that kind of weird situation whereby we've got the ANBL quarter-final game, which is where both legs being played at the same place.
Both legs are being played at the same place. I've
Yeah,
not seen this. What's this?
really.
No, I've not seen this. What's this?
Well,
I haven't looked at
the
where the
Danish
games are.
team, the
Yeah,
Danish team,
yeah.
played last week and they came to Aarhus.
All right. Yeah.
And
Very good.
now
Very good.
Newcastle are going to
I thought we decided it was Aarhus and Warhus.
Aarhus. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I've been
Yeah.
saving that one up. I meant to use it last week, but I totally forgot. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's something as good as that, given the paucity of material that we have, something as good as that can't go to waste, can it?
I'm still making the executive decision that even with the two
I'm
games, we're
happy with
not going to,
that. I'm happy with that.
because I will be in London next Sunday. So the idea of doing it on a Monday just because.
Well, I'd quite like to critique some of the closeouts in the All-Star game.
The All-Star game, yeah.
Yeah, that might be interesting. I'm sorry, I'm really watching that through my fingers. I hope
Yeah.
desperately I'm wrong. But I'm not sure I will be. Yeah, no, I've got no problem
Well,
with that.
T threw down the challenge. Was it yesterday or
Yeah,
today?
he
I can't
tried, and
remember.
he's trying.
He's
He
trying.
desperately tried to, we know what
He's
the NBA
hoping.
is like.
Yeah.
We know we're going to try. All I'm thinking is, yeah, I'm not. The thing is, a dunk's as good as a block.
Mm,
A dunk's as good as a block attempt. A
mm,
dunk's as good as a situation in the game. Now, if I'm anybody on that South team and
mm.
Jalen Pipkins flies in, I'm not trying to block it.
No.
Even Josh Sharma,
Mm,
I'm not trying to block it. Maybe they will. But that makes it better. But no, we'll see. It's a week off for us. That's good
yes.
enough for me.
So, Dave and I will be back in 2 weeks' time to do it
Mm.
all over again, and maybe we'll pick up on the two games that we're missing next week. We'll see what the
I think we'll do
situation
it
is.
certainly if Newcastle win in Denmark, we'll do a
Yeah,
half. I'll do half an hour on that. Yeah, I think I'll be
yeah,
I'll be somewhat surprised if it
yeah,
happens, but I'll do half an hour on that. Oh yeah, and you've got to find out. You got to find out and tweet out the last day that Leicester and Newcastle lost games by a combination of 50, 57 or 58 points or whatever it was. Because
yeah. My suspicion is it is the 90s when
99.
there was one season I think where Leicester and Newcastle were the bottom two teams in the league, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Like
that's it.
at the
Certainly,
same time, they
certainly
both
bottom
spent a
four
lot of time
conference.
being the bottom team, but I
No,
think at the same time.
yeah, certainly bottom conference. Oh well, that's yeah, there's a task.
I shall do that now.
Yeah, and this is important to people because this is all about this show is all about historical context.
Indeed,
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 indeed. You got the spreadsheets, we're not going to put them to waste.
indeed. So I'm going to run off and work that one out. And if you want to know the answer, just look at my Twitter at about somewhere between 8:30 and 9 o'clock on Sunday night. I'm sure that's where the answer will be. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time. But for now, goodbye.
Bye, guys.